Hello everybody, my name is Seth Shamp. I'm here with Beckley. We're at Gracie, Vermont, bringing you another move of the week. So far we've been looking at achieving these dominant positions in grappling. We started last week with getting to the mount and maintaining it. I tell my students when you've achieved a dominant position, back mount, full mount, side mount, you're allowed to do one of three things. You're allowed to control and cook them, you're allowed to attack them, and you're allowed to transition to another spot. Last week we talked about cooking, controlling, maintaining the mount. Today we're going to pick up from where we left off and talk about an attack from the mount. One of the most common and fundamental attacks from the mount is our key lock. It's a bent arm lock, but at the same time it's also one of the first submissions that people start to give up on. They say, I could get that against white belts and newer people, but I can't make it work against more experienced people. I promise you, that is your opportunity to grow. That's your opportunity to get better at Jiu Jitsu. So how does this key lock work? We're going to look at a basic idea here. I'm mounted at Beckley, and she has her arms in nice and tight to her body, and so I'm not going to just try to push her arm down. The idea of being able to separate a grown person's arm from their body who doesn't want you to is unrealistic. So instead of just pushing the arm down, I'm going to try to make the arm weak. If I tried to push Beckley's arm down and she held tight, very difficult. But if I put her elbow out here and then push the wrist, it'd be very hard for her to stop. They get very weak when their elbow comes out. So that's what I'm going to focus on. So when I cross grip the wrist and I come inside the elbow, I'm going to anchor my elbow inside my own hip and I'm going to drive forward, flaring that elbow out. Now I'll turn the corner and punch the wrist to the mat. Once the wrist hits the mat, my elbow is going to drop into next to her neck. Now, one of the simplest ways to defend the key lock is for Beckley to bridge in the direction that I'm attacking. And when she puts a big bridge in that direction, she makes me roll, she makes me let go. So, in an effort to mitigate that defense, I'm going to try to take her foot away from her hips. If we turn on the side just a little bit, as I go down with my elbow, I'm going to take my same side leg there and I'm going to stretch it out to the far side, bringing her leg away from her hips. I'm grapevining that leg so her ability to bridge in this direction goes way down. So I cross grip the wrist, arm inside my own hip, drive forward, punch the wrist to the mat, my elbow drops next to her neck, and my foot grapevines hers. Now I'm going to lift up this elbow, slide underneath, and grab my own wrist. Now I can start to finish. One of the things that I tell my students is that making your job easier to finish is the key. If this elbow stays really, really high, I'm going to have to crank that arm. But if I pull this elbow nice and tight into her hip, I'll set the torque on that shoulder, making finishing very easy. Whatever you compromise on the front end of a submission, you're going to have to make up on the back end. So that means any details that I miss or angles that I skip over, I'm going to have to make up for that with force, with energy, with strength. If I do everything right, pull that elbow in, it will not take much force. So again, I cross grip the wrist, inside the elbow, push the elbow away, drop the wrist to the mat, elbow down next to her neck. My foot swings inside of her ankle, grapevining away from her hip. Lift up the elbow, grabbing my own wrist. I'm going to pull that elbow into her hip. I'm going to lift up her elbow and I'm going to paint the mat with the backs of her knuckles, giving me my key lock. So, again, the key lock, the Americana, it's one of the first submissions that people learn. It's also one of the first submissions that people learn to defend. So, making it work after you've had some success with it and people start to defend, that's the key. That's your time to start learning how to make things work for you. My name is Seth. This is Beckley. We're at Gracie, Vermont, bringing you another move of the week.